Hi everyone, this is LexsyCrafts, and today on Mapping Monday we are doing a world map. I'm using an Arteza notebook that is 8 by 10 with the sheet size, and let's get started. So I'm going to use dice to map out my continents and islands. They're all 6-sided dice, aka D6s, and I'm going to remove the 5s and 6s because those represent water to me. 1s and 2s represent mountains, and 3s and 4s represent forests. So I'm just removing all of those 5s and 6s, and I'm taking away the 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s, and writing down M for mountain and F for forest. Super simple. And I'm doing this in pencil so that I can erase it. And that big area in the middle that you see that is empty is going to be a body of water. So anywhere there's not an M or an F is going to be water. All right, so up next I'm using my Ohu pens, and I'm using an O3 size pen to map out the continents and islands. And I'm going a little bigger with some of the islands just so that I can have more space on them. And I'll also map out the area of water in the middle of the map as well, in the middle of the continent. And I do a really squiggly coastline. I think it makes it look a little bit more realistic. You can do a smooth coastline if you want, it just won't look as good. But because my scale is going to be small, I'm going to make it more squiggly. So next I am going to make my mountains. I make them really jagged and kind of jiggly a little bit. I believe that makes them look a little bit more realistic, like on a real map. And I'm doing mountain clusters on each of the M's so that no mountain is alone. That doesn't really make sense. It doesn't look really realistic on a map. So here I am. I'm just doing mountains, and I'm making them small. The smaller the mountain, the smaller the scale of the whole map, and the bigger the map will look. If you do really big mountains, then everything will look a lot smaller. And your continent will be smaller in comparison to really what you want. So next up, I'm going to do my forests, and I'm just going to mark the outlines of the forests, and I'm doing really puffy clouds-like forest here. And I do my details near the end because I want spaces to put like cities and things like that if I want to. And I do put in cities. And I'm still using my O3 pen here. And each F is its own mountain. Or, I'm sorry, each F is its own forest, not mountain. M's are mountains, silly. You can join them together if you want, but I like having separate forests for this map. Just lots of vegetation here and there. So next up, I'm using a Sakura Micron pen in red. It's a size 01, and I'm putting little dots for where the cities are. Now, I used red for my like cities and tribes and things like that now because sometimes I use a triangle to represent tribes, and those look really a lot like mountains if you use black. So red just helps them stand out a little bit more. And if you do city names, it looks better if you do them in red as well. So now I am going to go in with my 01, and I'm going to put in tree trunks, and I'm going to put in tree tops on the trees in the forest. Now, the more treetops that you put into the forest, the denser the forest is. And you can do little clusters of them together if you want. That makes it look like the forest is more compact. And the little lines for the tree trunks, I just flick down really quickly. I like to make a lot of them. It might look like a shadow to you, but when you zoom in, there's space in between them. And I do this for every forest. And you can either make pointed type trees or rounded trees. Because I did puffy cloud-like forests, I did rounded treetops. So I guess this is more of a warm climate area. So next we are going to do details on the mountains. And I just shade the right-hand side of the mountain just a little bit. To me, that's what looks best. I used to do little lines for shading, kind of like for the forest tree trunks. But in a way, they kind of look like pyramids, which can look good if they're in a desert setting or something like that. And some people do the little lines and it looks really good on theirs. But for me, I really like the shading. I think it makes them pop a little bit more. It's just my personal preference. I learned how to do my world mapping from WASD 20 and Questing Beast. I've tried lots of different ways to do mountains, and I'll probably experiment with a few more. But like I said, this is just the way that makes them pop more to me. And that's the reason I do like my triangles and stuff like that to show tribes and things like that in red now. It just makes them stand out a bit more. And in a way, it makes it look a little bit more professional, in my opinion. So now I'm using an 07 pen, and I'm going to do the coastline. So on the outside water areas, it's basically if you took the little island or continent and you moved it up by about a millimeter. And that's the reason I'm using a thicker pen here than I do anywhere else. It just helps give that impression of shadowing a bit more. Now, when I go to the lakes, it's as if I drag them down. So you do the underside of the continents of where all the water is. And this is just something super simple that you can do that makes your map pop just that little bit more. The more islands you have, the more tedious it is. But like I said, it makes your map pop just that little bit more, and it's something so simple that you can do. It's just a little time consuming. And do not forget your lakes. Sometimes I forget my lakes and it looks a little odd. And so now we're going to go in and we are going to do a coastline. And I just do like a long wiggly line around each of the continents. And I do them sporadically. I don't connect them Sometimes they go over each other or under each other, but they're just a wiggly line that represents water that goes around each of the continents and each of the islands. And I do it for the water inside the big old lakes that I've got. I do it for those too. It just represents where the coastline is, really. And again, there's a lot of ways to do water. This is one of my favorite ways because it looks the neatest, in my opinion. If I do more world maps, which I probably will do, I'll show different ways to do water. But this is just one of my favorite ways. It makes it look like a real map. And again, it's super simple, but it's time consuming, especially if you have a lot of islands and stuff like that. So now I'm going to add in some deserts and some swamps. So for deserts, I put little hill-like areas and dots all around it for a desert. And then for a swamp, I do 3 little lines and a little leaf or a little grass cluster. And I do little wiggly lines on the sides to kind of show a swampy water. I just do this in areas that seem a little too sparse of stuff. It's basically to fill in the map a little bit more so it doesn't look so bare. And this is what it looks like in the end. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much.